They called it Land's End because it just was at the end of the land. My name's Tom Mayers. I was born in Tampa, Florida, on August 25th, 1951. I live at the north end of Longboat Key at a family home called Land's End. It was built on a piece of property that belonged to my great uncle, John Savarese. He owned the Mistletoe, which was the first passenger-carrying boat to go from Tampa to Sarasota on a regular basis. My mother was born in Tampa, and my father was born in Barbados. They came down to Land's End back in 1935. John Savarese had lost his fortune in the Depression, and my mother and father got married. They found this piece of property that Uncle Johnny owned, and they bought it for back taxes. They paid probably somewhere between $50 and $500. From 1936, 37, they had a structure built, and then after that they just added on to it. Now it's a real comfortable, unique house that's sort of perched over the water. It had an aluminum boat with a Mercury Hurricane 10 motor on it. One time before the bridge was built, I remember my dad forgetting to tie the boat, or he pulled it up on the beach without tying it up, and it was floating away, and lightning storm was coming in, and he was swimming after the boat because he'd felt stupid that he had not tied the boat up, because of course, you know, it was nobody's fault but his. So as the boat was floating out the pass, my dad was swimming after it. You know, one of my earliest memories is all the kids and my mom on the porch watching my dad swim after the boat, and mother saying, "Let it go, Frank," you know, but he wasn't going to let that boat go. That was our transportation. Before the bridge, built in 1958, when you went from Tampa to Land's End, you had to go through Sarasota, over the bridges that existed, and then up to the north end of the island, and then you just stop. You couldn't go any further because there was no bridge between Anna Maria and Longboat Key. All of a sudden, now there was a loop, and it wasn't the end of nowhere. Back in 1960, there were less than 1,000 people on Longboat Key, and there were just vast areas, and we never could comprehend that we would ever see the end of those vast wilderness areas. It was not even something you would even imagine, that there would ever be a time where there wasn't some area that just had too many sand spurs or too many mosquitoes, or that you just didn't get to. My dad, instead of thinking of it as an isolated getaway, he thought, well, when the bridge comes, there's going to be lots of people, and we need to have a business so that we can cash in on some of the traffic. So we started a business back in 1958. He had a marina here with a small restaurant. The hamburgers were 45 cents. The hot dogs were 25 cents. Candy bars were a nickel. My dad made really good fish head chowder. We'd sell that along with the hamburgers. We had a cage out on the dock where we had sharks, big stingrays in there, and turtles. It was just for fun, for people to have something to look at when they came to the marina. We used to rent sunfish. Farmers would bring pigs, you know, like a live pig, and then my father would butcher a pig, and we'd have a pig roast. And the fishermen would come and throw fish up on the dock. Daddy would give them a cup of coffee and not charge them for it. So, I mean, it was just kind of a nice, relaxed way to be. People would bring in fish that they caught. We had a scale where we would actually weigh the fish for people. It was just one of the things we did at the marina. And it was just a family affair with my sisters and my mom and dad. You know, if mother wasn't cooking sandwiches or daddy wasn't cooking, you know, hamburgers, then the girls were cooking them. And so that was the way we lived. As a kid growing up, we'd have 100 to 200 people up on our roof dancing to rock and roll music. My mom used to tell me, "You have to go to sleep, Tom. you have to go to church tomorrow, you know, and I go, God, you know, here we got 200 people on the roof dancing, and you're telling me at 10 o'clock I have to go to bed and go to sleep. I don't know any better place you really could have been raised. My job was filling the drink box. We would get out in the morning, get up, put a mask on, go diving, go swim all day, and then come back at lunchtime, have somebody make you a sandwich or make your own sandwich, and then go right back out. I was at a very young age out crabbing and fishing was just a way of getting good food. There was a sign out front that said, "Ring ship's bell for service," and I still am that way today, just from growing up in that environment. My dad used to be a raconteur. People who came to the marina usually got something good to eat and got some interesting stories. Oh, I remember him getting drunk and saying, "Oh, I can catch rattlesnakes with my bare hands, 2 of them." And, you know, and then they'd take bets, and he'd go out and catch 2 rattlesnakes with his bare hands. And, I mean, you know, just nobody would even imagine that he could do that. And I'm not advocating doing that. I'm just saying those were the days. You know, that's the way it was. And my mom was a sweetheart. She was soft-spoken, but the more you got to know about her, the more you liked her, and the more you realized, you know, how she deferred to my father. My father was a storyteller. He told everything, but then she had really as rich a history as he had. Her father was shipwrecked in the Cayman Islands and then came home and died of throat cancer shortly after that. And so she was raised by nuns, actually, in the Academy of the Holy Names, and she loved the nuns and she loved the Catholic Church. And you know, I used to say, well, you know, to her, religion was its own reward. You know, at different times, it looked like we were about to lose our house. My great-grandfather in Barbados chose to be buried on the edge of a cliff that's eroding, and he has on his gravestone, it says, "It's by the grace of God that you are saved, not by that of your own doing." When I think of Land's End being perched over the water and the erosion taking the sand away, where you just feel like you're sort of right on the edge of falling in the water. It's just like a kaleidoscope that somebody's just turning very slowly. It's almost imperceptible, but it's changing, just keeps changing.